Hello and welcome, everyone. We're so happy to see you here. We have our wonderful speakers. I'm Dr. Lisa Miller, your moderator today, and we have Beyond the Game, Empowering Athletes Through a Faculty Mentorship Program. I will turn it over to Julian and Ashley to take over. Thank you.
Everybody, I am Dr. Ashley Ryder. I am at Flagler College with my colleague, Dr. Villamere, and we're going to be talking about a mentorship program that Dr. Villamere and some other colleagues here had started a few years ago. So just to give you a little bit of background, here's kind of the direction that we're going to be heading in today. So you have some background and literature on the topic of athletics, mentorship, and the faculty athletic representative, and then more so specifically looking into our specific program here at Flagler, how it was developed, why it was developed, an overview of the entire program, and then possibly if you are interested in starting a program at your own institution, how to go about doing that, looking at strategies and engagement in the program, and then of course leaving time for questions and answers. So to first off kind of place us in the right mindset, looking at the background of a FAR. So again, the FAR being the faculty athletics representative. The FAR and kind of what they are set out to do bridges the gap between student athletes, faculty, and the NCAA. So as a FAR, they're kind of acting as a liaison with academic support along with providing personal guidance. More often than not, at most institutions, there is only one faculty athletic representative for all of the student athletes. Again, depending upon your institution size, whether we're talking about Division I, Division II, Division III, the amount of student athletes can quite vary based on amount. So being the FAR, they can be oftentimes overwhelmed with responsibilities. They're required to do reports and programming, making sure that they're in line with eligibility and those sorts of standards. So the FAR has a lot of responsibilities going on. Oftentimes, maybe they want to seek out and do more. But again, the FAR is just one person. Sometimes it's staff, sometimes it's faculty. So they're taking on this load in addition to possibly their staff or faculty duties. They're oftentimes compensated for that, maybe with a course release or a stipends, but they have a lot of responsibilities to try to serve these student athletes, whether it's conducting exit interviews, looking at class difficulties with scheduling. So if student athletes aren't being able to take certain classes or if it's after a certain class time. I know recently here at Flagler, we were doing our scheduling and registering for classes, and our FAR was making sure to keep our mentors as well as our coaches up to date on, hey, here are the student athletes who have not registered yet, making sure that someone was reaching out to advocate for those student athletes to make sure that they register for classes. But those are just a few areas in which the faculty athletic representatives are involved in. So because they have to be involved in so many different areas, they may not have the capacity for individualized or team-based mentorship. So looking at challenges in supporting student athletes. So with student athletes, they face a variety of demands. These demands can be academic pressures, performance pressures, athletic commitments, time constraints. So again, looking at their day-to-day, how many hours are they practicing? Do they have lift? How many times a day do they have lift? Do they have private practices with their coach? How many credits are they enrolled in? A number of student athletes are also involved in other extracurriculars. A number of student athletes also have jobs they work. So the student athletes are kind of being pulled in a multitude of different directions. So our student athletes have a variety of different pressures that they are facing. When it comes to the FAR's limitations, again, they may have limited resources or time for individualized or team-based support. So again, not having the time or the capacity to give that mentorship or support that they may want to. Looking in gaps in mentorship, there's ample research out there. This could be a mentorship presentation itself, but showing how mentorship or getting that guidance leads to retention, leads to long-term success. So what we found was that there was need for structured, comprehensive support. So again, the FAR cannot do it all, faculty can't do it all, coaches can't do it all. So this program was kind of developed to assist with a variety of different capacities, whether it was academic achievement, mental and personal well-being, but a variety of different areas. So looking at mentorship, I'm going to skip down to the second and third areas here. So with mentorship overall, there are a lot of key benefits when it comes to mentorship, whether this is they have increased academic success, athletic performance, but being given mentorship has seen to have positive benefits and effects. It's seen to support personal growth during transitional lifetime stage. So again, coming to college, students and student athletes are sort of leaving home, going away for the first time. So it's a great time to implement that in a transitional life stage. Specifically, again, Flagler College, we are Division II. So why this matters, especially for a Division II institution, would be that we have fewer resources than a Division I institution. So we don't have a specific center dedicated to this. When I was at Ohio State, they had a specific center dedicated to student athletes. We don't have that here at Flagler. So again, making sure that we are doing the most with the resources that we have. So again, having fewer resources, how can we capitalize on the staff or the faculty that we currently have at our institution? And it provides valuable support and mentorship with limited financial limitations. So as Dr. Villamere is going to go on to explain later, our mentors are all mostly faculty, some staff, but mostly faculty. As faculty, we are required to do the teaching research service. So for us, that counts towards the service. So we get credit for service as well as having meaningful relationships with the student athletes and providing them valuable support without costing the college extra dollars, extra money. Looking at the FAR limiting offerings, again, they're able to provide personalized guidance outside of coaches and professors. So student athletes, they have access to their coaches, to the assistant coaches, to the athletic department, to the professors. Maybe they have an academic advisor, but this is just one more person to have in that layer to provide support to them. Again, depending upon the mentor, depending upon the team, this can all look very different, but mentorship for this program, we've seen it through academic support, personal support, career-oriented support, so a variety of different capacities at that. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to one of the founders of the Flagler program, Dr. Villamere.
Thank you. So this is just the mission of the Flagler Athletics program. As a Division II school, right, they are that balance between academic focus and athletic focus. The athletic department has been growing in the last few years. They've added lacrosse, both men's and women's, added track and field, both men's and women's. So about 400 student athletes in a campus of about 2,500 total students. So that kind of gives you an idea of the percentage of student athletes. Now, Ashley and I both teach in sport management, which is heavily student athletes. When I started at Flagler in 2014, the classroom was about 25–30% student athletes. And now we are up over 60% student athletes in sport management. So we see a lot of student athletes from a variety of programs, but some of our colleagues in other departments don't get a sense of what the athletic commitment is and the scheduling of student athletes. So to start, I have always had an interest in athlete development and how athletes have a well-rounded education, right? So I have done some other presentations and research on programming to support student athletes as they transition into careers and what happens if they get injured and how do they become well-rounded students while they're in school. So I have a good relationship with the associate director of athletics for compliance. And he and I met and we're talking about other ways we could support student athletes. You know, every school, as Ashley said, does it a little bit different. At one point in time, the athletic department had their own academic advisor. And so they would all individually meet with one academic advisor and talk about their schedules and their career plans. So they still had a faculty advisor in their department, but they did have one person who was like the liaison for advising. And then that person retired and the line was replaced with somebody else. So when they lost that, it took away the additional layer of support for students. If a student athlete is having a conflict in the classroom, they, you know, don't always know who to go to, or if they are having trouble with their coach, they may not feel comfortable going to the coach with that problem. So the FAR becomes really important in that situation. So the associate athletic director and I sat down and talked about additional ways we could support student athletes. And this was something he had heard of at another school. So he and I sat down, wrote the description of what the program would look like. He got it approved through the athletic department. I got it approved through academic affairs. At the time, there was a FAR who was a history professor, and he was retiring. So instead of me getting too involved and stepping on any toes, the position description was sent to the full faculty from the FAR at the time. So the FAR sent this email about what we were trying to do and how we were going to create this program to support individual teams in a more meaningful way. So the position description, which was about a page long, was sent through the academic affairs office to all full-time faculty. Asking faculty if they wanted to volunteer. If they did want to volunteer, for them to identify what team they felt most connected to. And this led to some really interesting discussions, right? Some faculty selected teams that they had played on. So we have a math faculty member who played volleyball in college. And so she really wanted to be the mentor for the women's volleyball team because she felt most connected to them, even though those were not the athletes that she knew the best. Um, you know, there's an econ professor who really liked men's basketball and went to all of their games. So he wanted to be the mentor for that. Surprisingly, we had 3 people volunteer to be the women's basketball mentor, which was different, right? Most people want to be the mentor for a high profile team is what the expectation was, but 3 people volunteered to be the mentor for women's basketball. I ended up, my first season doing this, I was the mentor for the men's soccer team. But that was because no one else volunteered to be their mentor, and I was willing to take any team. So we had a meeting with all the faculty mentors. So we're on to phase 2. We had a meeting with all the faculty mentors and really left it up to them what each individual wanted to do to build this relationship. So that first semester, everybody did something a little different. And I would meet individually with mentors to ask what they were doing, to talk about it. We would give ideas. So for me personally, I met with the men's soccer team a few times as a team. I met with them right before one of their practices. So I went out to the field, met with them, talked to them. You know, we all did some like team building. Everybody introduced themselves. We talked about our favorite songs and things. And then right before registration in that fall semester, I had another meeting with them. We talked about how you pick classes, what's important, meeting the general education requirements, um, you know, an opportunity for them to air grievances if there were any. And those were the only 2 meetings in that first semester I had with our full team. Individually, I met with athletes. I had one young man who wanted to talk about time management, right? He was struggling with his schedule and he wanted to talk about how he could better organize his day. I had one student athlete who had a conflict with the coach, and he came and met with me individually to talk about, you know, how he could work better with his coach. So over that first year, the AD and I just kind of were a little more hands off, like let everybody make this relationship what they want to make it. Then after that, we started giving more of like a menu item of things that people could do. So there was a math professor who was the mentor for women's softball, and he would have tutoring sessions with them who were having trouble in statistics. And another person who was a mentor for women's basketball would go to they had tutoring sessions for the first and second year students, like study hall. And she would go to that and just sit at the tables and chat with them and talk about, studying for tests and how they could be better in the classroom, or any conflicts they were having. So over the course, it's been 6 years now that this program has existed. And over the course of the program, we have recruited new faculty. Every team now has at least one faculty mentor. They're able to meet individually. It's not so much for any one person that they can't support the team, right? The athletes already have a support system in athletics and in their academic departments. So it's really just another opportunity, another touch point for athletes to feel connected to the campus, to feel like they are supported, um, and to feel like they have someone to go to if they have an issue. It also helps for them to have one more person who knows who they are, right? We are on a small campus. When there's 2,500 people, it's pretty easy to walk across campus and see someone you know. So, another smiling face to a student athlete is a bonus on our campus. As I mentioned, with about 400 student athletes and just one faculty athletics rep, having every team have an additional faculty mentor has been really helpful. So I talked about how we got started. Some challenges is, sometimes people overstep. And so mentors that try to do too much advising or changing of schedules, sometimes mentors have struggled with, like, are they part of the team or not part of the team? We've had a mentor who wants to do all the away travel with the team. We've had mentors who want to sit on the bench during games. And so, like, me personally, that's not something I'm interested in, but some people really want to feel connected to the team. Recruiting people has not been a challenge, right? People love sports, as we know, and so getting people to agree to be part of the team and to support the athletes has not been a challenge. Some teams are larger than others. So we do not have football at our school, but we do have men's and women's lacrosse, which are about 50 athletes each team. So finding multiple mentors for each of those teams has been important. Baseball is also a large team. And so, their mentor wasn't with us anymore. So they had to find another mentor. And then, like, maybe let's have two now. So overall, the program has been successful. I have not seen any, like, challenges that can't be overcome, and it's just like another way to support student athletes and give them a way to feel connected to campus and empowered to make some decisions.
All right. I believe that's all we have. I think there's about less than 10 minutes for questions, but here is our contact information along with a picture of Flagler College in the background.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And let me look in the chat here. Now you have wonderful facilities there at Flagler, so I'm sure faculty want to be involved in some way. Do you think this would work equally at some larger or other types of universities?
I think it would have the potential to. I think it's just about how you would go about scaling it. So, like at Ohio State, they had a specific office that was tailored for that. So I think it's about how you would scale it and get faculty involved to a certain extent. So I think at a certain point, a certain institution might be too large to do it at least the way that we're operating with, but I think it all just depends.
I also think that it's important for the mentors to not be too big of fans. And
Yes.
so, you know, if we were talking about a big school where athletes already struggle with that balance of being celebrity, I would worry that there would be some negative pressure, right? And if we're too big of fans of the athletes, it can cloud how objective we are.
Yes, I imagine quite a few rules or regulations would be needed over time. I love how you sculpted it over time to make your adjustments. If anybody else has a question, please feel free to add it to the chat. And let's give both of you a big thank you. That was very educational, and I definitely appreciate your time. And thank you for being here at the conference as well. Okay. Thank you again. All right. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.